The arrival high above Earth, hidden behind the glow of the moon. A giant silver ship drifted in silence. It was not like the clumsy rockets humans sent into space. The ship moved like it was alive. The surface smooth, the metal shining under. The light, inside. The air was warm and scented with something sweet. Like flowers that did not grow on Earth. A group of tall alien women stood before a huge glass window. Their eyes glowed like liquid gold. They were dressed in long robes that shimmered as they moved. Each one of them was from Allure Prime, a world far richer and older than Earth could imagine. They were not here for war, and they were not here for peace treaties. They were here for something far more unusual. They wanted humans, not all humans. Only men, and not all men. Only the finest Earth had to offer. One of them, Lady Saravani, the leader of the council, leaned closer to the glass. Her voice was soft, but it carried power. Look at them. So different from us, yet so perfect, she whispered. Another woman laughed lightly. Perfect enough to pay for. Her laugh was elegant, but her words were serious. On Allure Prime, human companions were rare treasures. Wealthy alien women paid top credits for the right one. Some bought them for beauty, others for strength. But there were whispers of deeper reasons. Reasons no human had ever learned. Lady Saravani turned away from the glass and walked to a glowing table in the center of the room. The table lit up with maps of Earth. Cities appeared as tiny lights. Some blinking faster than others. Her finger hovered over one of them, a small city. Barely known. Here, she said. The next one will come from here. The others looked at her in surprise. That is no capital, no great place, one of them said. Saravani only smiled. Greatness is not always born in great places. Below on Earth, the night sky was clear. In that same small city, Ethan was finishing his work in a tiny repair shop. The streets were quiet, the air cool. He had no idea that far above him, golden eyes were watching. No idea that his life was about to change forever. The silver ship shifted slightly in orbit. Its surface rippled as if it were made of water. In the cargo bay, rows of sleek, needle-like craft waited. Each one was designed for silent travel into a planet's atmosphere. One of these crafts would soon be sent down. Its mission: to deliver an invitation that could not be refused. Lady Saravani gave a final order. Send the scouts, choose carefully, bring him to us. The Valoran women nodded, their long hair catching the ship's soft light. They were hunters now, but instead of weapons, they used wealth, beauty, and power, and once they chose, there was no escape. As the first scout craft detached from the ship, its engines made no sound. It slipped into the darkness, a shadow against the stars. It moved faster than any Earth jet, faster than Ethan's own heartbeat would be when he saw it. The city below slept peacefully, but somewhere, deep in the quiet night, the hunt had begun, and in the warm, glowing halls of the silver ship, the alien women were already imagining the moment they would meet him. For them, humans were not just companions. They were trophies, symbols of status. And for Lady Saravani, this one human was far more than that. What she wanted was something no credits could truly buy. Asterisk the invitation. The next morning, the city looked the same as always. Shops opened, buses rattled past, people hurried to work. But for Ethan, the day felt different. It was the kind of feeling you couldn't explain, like the air was heavier, like the world was holding its breath. He sat on the steps outside his small apartment, drinking cheap coffee. The street was quiet, only the sound of a distant barking dog. Then something caught his eye. A flash of silver in the corner, not the shine of a car, not the glint of sunlight on glass. It was small, smooth, and it moved like it had chosen him. It stopped at his feet. At first, he thought it was a toy or maybe a drone, but it wasn't buzzing. It wasn't making a sound. It simply hovered, glowing faintly. Ethan frowned. What the hell? The object unfolded like a flower, revealing a flat metal card. The surface shifted with strange liquid patterns. Then words appeared in glowing blue light. You have been chosen." Ethan blinked, unsure if he was dreaming, under the words. There was a seal, a strange circle with 3 stars and a curved line through it. He didn't recognize it, but it felt official. Beneath the seal, more words appeared. Report to the location on the back. Refusal is not possible. The card rotated slowly, showing a map. It pointed to a place he had never seen before. On the edge of the city, there was no street name, no building number, just a red dot in an empty space. A soft chime came from the card. Then it folded itself back into a perfect silver disc and floated away into the sky. Ethan jumped to his feet. "Hey! Wait!" he shouted, but it was already gone. The street was still empty. Had anyone else seen that? He looked around. An old man across the street was sweeping his porch. Ethan called out, "Did you see that thing?" The man glanced at him, frowning. "See what?" Ethan's mouth went dry. Inside his apartment, Ethan tossed the coffee aside and sat on the edge of his bed. The card's words burned in his mind. You have been chosen. Chosen for what? And who had the power to make refusal impossible? Something told him this wasn't a prank. The way that card moved, the way it seemed alive. It was nothing human-made, and if it wasn't human-made, then who or what had sent it? Outside, far above the clouds, the silver ship waited. Lady Saravine stood watching the feed from the scout craft. Her golden eyes narrowed as she watched Ethan pick up the card. "He hesitates," one of the other Valoran women said. Saravine smiled faintly. "Let him. Curiosity will do the rest." Ethan didn't know it yet, but every step he took from this moment would be watched, measured, and judged. The invitation was only the first move. The real game was about to begin. The red dot on the map had led Ethan to the very edge of the city. The streets here were almost empty. Old warehouses stood like sleeping giants, their windows dark and dusty. It didn't feel like the kind of place where anything important happened, but the map had brought him here, and the map didn't lie. He stopped in front of a wide metal gate. It was locked with a thick chain, but as soon as he touched it, the chain broke apart, the links falling in slow motion. They didn't even make a sound when they hit the ground. The gate swung open on its own, as if welcoming him inside. Ethan stepped in. The yard was empty except for a single massive warehouse at the far end. Its doors were closed, but faint. Light shone from the cracks. Every step he took echoed, the sound swallowed by the strange stillness. When he reached the warehouse, the doors slid open before he could touch them. Inside was not what he expected. It wasn't dusty. It wasn't old. It was alive. The walls glowed with streams of blue light running like rivers. Machines hummed softly, and the air smelled clean, almost too clean. He wasn't alone. Dozens, maybe hundreds of men stood in the wide hall. Some looked confused. Some looked excited. They were all different ages, all different backgrounds. But they all had one thing in common. They looked like they didn't belong here anymore. Then Ethan did. A voice came from above, smooth and powerful. "Welcome, chosen ones." Ethan looked up. On a raised platform stood a tall woman, but not human. Her skin shimmered faintly under the lights. Her hair fell like molten gold, and her eyes glowed as if they held tiny suns inside. She wore a robe of deep silver, marked with the same strange symbol from the invitation card. "You are here because you are valuable," she said. Her voice seemed to fill the entire hall, even though she wasn't shouting. "Your presence here is not an accident. It is not luck. You have been selected." Ethan felt the weight of her words. Selected. For what? He glanced around, noticing some men whispering nervously. A few looked like they already knew the answer, but nobody spoke it aloud. The alien woman stepped down from the platform and began walking slowly through the crowd. She studied each man, as if she were reading a book. When she passed Ethan, her gaze lingered, her golden eyes locked on his, and for a moment, the rest of the world disappeared. She didn't smile, didn't speak. She simply nodded, as if confirming something only. She knew. Then she turned back to the crowd. "Soon, you will understand why you are here. For now, follow the light." A line of glowing tiles appeared on the floor, stretching toward a large arched doorway at the back of the hall. One by one, the men began to follow it. Ethan hesitated for half a second, but then he stepped forward. Because whatever waited beyond that door was the reason his life had been pulled into this strange, silent storm. The auction, the glowing tiles led the men into a chamber so large it felt like it could hold an entire city inside. The air was warm and filled with a faint perfume, sweet but strange. Above, the ceiling was a dome of living light, swirling with colors Ethan had never seen before. It was beautiful, but it made his chest feel tight, like the room itself was alive and watching him. Rows of floating platforms circled the chamber. On each one sat alien women dressed in shining gowns, their faces marked with elegant patterns of light. They didn't speak to each other, but their eyes followed every movement below. Some eyes were curious, some cold, some hungry. A chime rang out, deep and soft, yet powerful enough to make the floor vibrate. In the center of the chamber, a round stage rose from the ground. The first man was led onto it. A beam of soft light wrapped around him, scanning from head to toe. Numbers and strange symbols floated in the air beside him, like a living scoreboard. Then it began. One of the alien women raised her hand. A glowing crystal appeared in the air before her, spinning slowly. Another woman raised her own, offering a crystal twice as bright. The bids climbed quickly, each crystal bursting into a shower of sparks before vanishing. Ethan realized those crystals weren't decoration, they were currency, and each one represented more wealth than he could imagine. The man on the stage was finally claimed by a tall alien with silver eyes. She smiled faintly, and the stage lowered with him inside. It was as if he had been taken into another world. The next man stepped forward. Again, the crystals flew. The sparks filled the air. Some auctions ended fast. Others dragged on with fierce, silent competition. Ethan's pulse quickened. Each time the stage rose, he was one step closer to standing on it, one step closer to being sold. When his name was finally called, his legs felt heavy. The stage lifted him high, the light scanning him slowly. He could feel dozens of eyes piercing through him. One woman tilted her head, studying his face like art. Another leaned forward, whispering something to her neighbor. The crystals began to appear. 1, then 2, then 5. The bids came faster than for anyone before him. The air was thick with heat and tension. But then, a voice cut through the room. "Stop!" Every crystal froze midair. The crowd turned toward the source. It was her, the golden-eyed woman from before, Lady Saravini. She stepped into the center of the floor, her robe flowing like liquid silver. "This one is not for sale," she said, her voice calm but final. A murmur spread among the other women. Some looked offended, others simply curious. Ethan stood frozen. Not for sale? Then why was he here? Saravini looked directly at him. "You will come with me," she said. It wasn't a request. And before Ethan could ask why, the stage sank beneath the floor. The auction, the crowd, the lights, all of it disappeared, leaving only darkness and the sound of his own quickening breath. The darkness faded into a room that looked nothing like the auction hall. It was smaller, warmer, with walls that shimmered like melted gold. The air smelled faintly of the same sweet perfume he had noticed earlier, somewhere soft. Music played, slow and calm, yet heavy, like each note had weight. Ethan sat in a smooth black chair. Across from him, Lady Saravine stood beside a table covered with strange objects, glass-like cubes that glowed from inside, silver coins that floated just above the surface, and a tall crystal bottle filled with a glowing blue liquid. She studied him without speaking. Her golden eyes didn't blink often, and when they did, it was slow, deliberate. Finally she said, "You know why the others bid for men like you?" Ethan shook his head, his voice stuck in his throat. "Because to them, humans are rare treasures." she continued. But you are not rare, you are unique. He frowned. Unique how? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she picked up one of the glowing cubes and set it gently in front of him. It began to hum softly, and images appeared inside. Flashes of stars, strange cities, alien faces. I will give you more credits than you can imagine, she said. Enough to live like a king on any world you choose. Ethan stared at the cube, mesmerized, but his voice came out steady. What do you want in return? Her smile was faint, almost sad. Only your time. And your trust. He didn't like the pause between those two words. Trust was not something he gave easily, and she could feel it. You're not telling me everything, he said quietly. Saravine tilted her head slightly. If I told you everything now, you would run. She stepped closer, the golden glow in her eyes brighter than before. You can take the deal and come with me, she said. Or you can leave this room. But if you leave, you will forget we ever met. You will forget all of this. Ethan's chest tightened. It wasn't just a choice between yes or no. It was a choice between knowing and never knowing. Between safety and whatever this was. He looked at the door behind her, then back at her eyes. She waited without moving. It felt less like she was offering him a deal, and more like she was giving him a test. Why me? He asked one last time. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Because your life is not what you think it is. The words hung in the air, and Ethan knew that whatever choice he made next would decide the rest of his life. Asterisk the revelation. The room shifted. Not in the way a door opens or a light changes. The walls themselves rippled, melting into something else. The golden glow faded, replaced by a deep blue light. Ethan was no longer sitting in a room. He was standing in a hall filled with hundreds of glowing pictures. At first he thought they were paintings, but when he stepped closer, he saw they were moving. Each one showed a man. Different clothes, different times, but the same face, his breath caught. What is this? Lady Saravini stepped beside him. A record, she said softly. Every man in these images lived on Earth. Different years, different places, but all of them were you. Ethan shook his head, backing away. No, that's impossible. Saravine touched one of the images, and it came alive in full size before them. A man in old armor stood on a battlefield, smoke curling in the air. His face was streaked with dirt and blood. Ethan's face. This was you in the year 1412, she said. You led an army that saved a kingdom from ruin. Another image appeared. A man in a white coat, standing in a laboratory. The same eyes, the same jawline. In 2237, you discovered a cure that saved 2 million lives, she said. And in 1865, you stopped a war before it began. Ethan felt dizzy. You're saying I've lived before? Saravine's voice was calm. Not just lived. You have been reborn, again and again. Always different, but always the same, and always important. She turned to face him. My people have been watching you for centuries. Every time you appear, something changes in history. You are what we call a catalyst. A catalyst for what? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. She stepped closer, her golden eyes locking on his. For survival, she said. My world is dying, and you are the only one who can stop it. Ethan's mind raced. Why me? Why your world? I'm not even from there. Her voice grew softer, almost human. Because your story did not start on Earth. The decision, the hall of glowing pictures faded. Ethan found himself standing in front of a massive window. Beyond it, space stretched endless and black. Far below, Earth floated like a small blue jewel. Far ahead, a distant golden star burned. And somewhere near it waited Velora Prime. Lady Saravine stood beside him. Silent, she did not push, did not beg. Her hands were clasped behind her back, her golden eyes fixed on the view. One step forward, and your life will never be the same, she said. One step back and you return to the life you know. You will forget everything you have seen here. Ethan's heart pounded. He thought about his small apartment, the half-broken coffee machine, the streets he had walked every day without knowing something like this could exist. And then he thought about the images, the man in armor, the man in the lab coat, the man in history books he had never read, all of them. Him, if I go with you, he said slowly, will I come back? Seravine's voice was gentle, but it carried the weight of truth. No one who leaves with us ever returns to the same life. You will be more than human, but you will not be the same. Ethan. The floor beneath them shifted. A narrow bridge extended toward a sleek, black shuttle waiting at the edge of the docking bay. Its surface shimmered like liquid night. The engines pulsed softly, as if breathing. Ethan stepped toward it, then stopped. The silence between them was heavy. Every choice he had ever made suddenly felt small compared to this one. He turned to her. Why do I feel like I already made this choice before? Her lips curved into the faintest smile. Because you have, she said, many times. Ethan closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, the bridge lights reflected in his gaze. He took a deep breath and stepped forward. The shuttle door closed behind him without a sound. From the window, Earth grew smaller. The Laura Prime grew closer, and somewhere deep inside, Ethan felt a strange certainty that his real story was only just beginning.